Welcome one and all to the PooderooPlays Kingdom Hearts series. Here we're going to take a deep dive into the lore of the franchise in a multi-part collection spanning every installment. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the truly fascinating universe of Kingdom Hearts.
So, Union Dark Road is the same game as Union, but it's an update that was released after Kingdom Hearts 3. It was revealed during the 20th anniversary show in 2022. So this was released like 3 years after Kingdom Hearts 3. The reason why it's called Dark Road is because it fully explains Xehanort's story on his Dark Road. The app had no players on it at this point, basically, and they had taken off all the online capability of it. They still released this on an app everyone considered dead. They still put that effort in to bring the story of Dark Road to light, and I really appreciate that. It details the story of Xenomorphs? It details the story of Xehanort's youth and the adventures that took place in his life. So at the end of Union X, we see a babby Xehanort get handed off to some guy in a blue robe. It begins with him living a quiet life on Destiny Islands with his blue-robed mentor, who believes that Xehanort is the child of Destiny, and they're living on Destiny Islands. If this is true, it would mean that Xehanort possesses the ability to sense the hearts in others, combine multiple hearts together to become one, and save the world from darkness. Does that sound like someone we already know? The mental suspicions are reinforced by Xehanort's dreams, which are all about his mentor's life before his rebirth. His life before he was Blue-Hooded Dude was the events of the life of the player from Union X. Xehanort is dreaming about the life of his mentor. Judging by the fact that he is having these dreams, and judging by the fact that Xehanort is, canonically confirmed, the great-great-grandson of Ephema. However, the years pass, Xehanort grows older, and the mentor just fluffs it. He just dies. So one day he just wakes up after his master has passed, and he's still having dreams about his master's life. He wakes up and he's like, yeah, maybe there are other worlds out there. Maybe that's why my master's life was in a place that isn't this one. So he starts pondering that, much the same way Riku did. And much the same way Riku was, this young Xehanort is greeted by a hooded, brown-cloaked figure on Destiny Islands. It is Ansem the Darkseeker. This is part of the completion of Xehanort's time travel loop. His Heartless travels back in time to tell his self to explore other worlds. He confirms his young self's world theory. Basically, he tells Xehanort of his destiny to travel the worlds outside of his own, and sends him to Scala ad Caelum to train as a Keyblade wielder. Remember, in the ending to Union X, we saw Xehanort meet Ericus. That moment where he arrives at Scala ad Caelum was just after he went through the portal he goes through now. However, that portal he does go through, the darkness begins to infect his heart because he walks through it without a black coat or Keyblade armor or anything that would protect him. So a couple years after his arrival, Xehanort is now a Keyblade wielder, along with his classmates listed here. Didn't write out his classmates' names.
Ah!
Xehanort is now a Keyblade wielder, along with his classmates Ericus, Erd, Bragi, Vor, and Hermod. And they are told by their master Odin that 7 of their upperclassmen have gone missing while training for their Mark of Mastery exam. And these upperclassmen are called Heimdall, Helgi, Hodor, Hoda, Sigrun, Vala, Vali, and Vidar. Baldur, another one of the lower classmen, is not informed of his sister Hoda's disappearance. Odin tells the rest of the lower classmen to go and travel the known worlds in search of the missing masters. In training, rather. After agreeing not to interfere with the events they see take place on these worlds, protecting the world order, the younglings set off on their mission. They first visit the pre-developed Agrabah, which is barren except for Heartless, before travelling to Wonderland, where they meet the Queen of Hearts and discover darkness already set in her heart. This leads Xehanort and Ericus to question how darkness begins in the first place in people, and if the upperclassmen they're searching for may have already succumbed to it, especially as Brain had once told them that darkness can hide inside someone, and they're completely unaware of it. Xehanort and Ericus decide to stay and investigate, while the other classmen move on. Here, they discover that the root of the Queen's darkness is her anger, and it's actually keeping the world in its natural order. The Queen's anger keeps them all in check, and it's just part of this world's natural order. Xehanort posits that the upperclassmen may have simply been defeated by the darkness. Later, the two boys recall Odin telling them that the darkness used to infect and spread from one person to the next, but it came from one source. Nowadays, people can spawn their own darkness themselves. It doesn't come from a root darkness, through negative emotions. But this leads Ericus to ponder over Balder speaking of Hoda's mental state just before her Mark of Mastery training, and the suspicions of the darkness taking over the upperclassmen grow stronger. Xehanort, Ericus, and their classmate Vor head to the Dwarf Woodlands, where they encounter the magic mirror. They question the mirror as to the whereabouts of the upperclassmen, and it informs them that they are all acting alone. They're no longer a unit. Ericus asks further about Vidar, who suddenly appears in person and voices their mistrust of Xehanort. So basically just pops into the Dwarf Woodlands, goes, I don't like you. Then he turns to Vor and goes, would you like to come with me? Vor agrees, leaving Xehanort and Ericus to ponder over why each member of their class wanted to become a Keyblade Master in the first place. Vor never shared her reasoning. So the group decide to inform Odin of Vor's disappearance, but are unable to reach him. Ericus and Xehanort disagree about what to do next with Vor, so Xehanort, and Hermod decide to search the other worlds, while Ericus and Bragi go to ask the magic mirror about Vor, only to be thwarted by the evil queen, who is guarding it, and so they leave. Meanwhile, the other group arrive at Beast's castle to discover two of the upperclassmen have stolen his rose. They are attacked by Heartless, and Erd is lured into the ballroom, where he is almost overwhelmed by a whole swarm of Heartless. However, he is saved by Vala. She notes Erd's determination. Erd is offered a spot on the upperclassmen's missions. Erd refuses and informs Vala that her and the others need to go home. Vala accepts this and has Vali give Erd the Beast's Rose, informing her that it's paramount to keeping the world in order, much the same way the Queen's anger was. The two upperclassmen leave, and the group reunite, returning the rose to Beast. Meanwhile, Odin informs Vidar that the 13 darknesses may soon be upon them. These true darknesses had been separated, with 7 locked inside the original Lost Masters, as per the Master of Masters' plan, 4 trapped in the realm between of the Data Worlds, and 2 were supposedly destroyed when Daybreak Town collapsed. Odin warns Vidar to learn to recognize the differences of true darknesses and ordinary ones. Because, you know, that's just something you can do. That thing with Odin talking to him was a flashback. Erd suggests that they find Ericus and Bragi, so they unite and head off. On their way, they are met by Jafar, who requests that they go and retrieve the genie's lamp from the Cave of Wonders. Xehanort can feel the darkness, because remember, he can sense things in people's hearts. He can feel the darkness inside Jafar is caused by his avarice, but he agrees regardless. So the group do find their lost classmates, but wrestle them... What the heck? The group go and find their classmates, but wrestle with the notion of finding the lamp after, in case it will mess with the natural order of this world, and potentially lure the upperclassmen to them, because it looks like the upperclassmen have been going after things that will change how the world works, like the magic mirror and the rose. They are correct, as Vidar and Vor suddenly appear, and Vidar explains that their mission is to find objects of true light to help replace the 7 they've already lost, the other classmates, and help them fight the oncoming threat of the 13 darknesses. He abandons his oath not to intervene with the world order, wanting to avenge his fallen classmates. Before leaving, he tries to poach Ericus, but vanishes before Ericus can say whether he's going to join them or not. The group eventually contact Odin and inform him of Vidar's plan, and he recalls the talk he had with Vidar in that flashback about the true darknesses. Vidar is now vengeful, and he wants something more powerful. Odin ponders the summoning of Kingdom Hearts, because he's an idiot, but knows it would erase all life on all worlds, and cannot guarantee it'd destroy the darkness. Flashing back to the present, Odin tells the lower classmen to abandon their mission and remarks that the Dark Seeker is upon them. Without purpose, the group wonder what to do when they are approached by Balder. He informs them that he has been studying the differences between darknesses and that perhaps the upperclassmen could be contacted through the underworld beneath the Colosseum. Ericus accidentally reveals that the whole time Balder was off studying, he and the rest of the lower classmen were trying to find his sister and the upperclassmen. But Balder informs them that he already knew Hoda had been slain.
She did.
She was slain before his eyes by Maleficent when he had followed his sister there. So his sister had just been like, I'm going to go to the Enchanted Dominion. And Maleficent killed her. Balder had followed her, and he had seen her be slain. He had awoken back in Skala ad Kalem, but he hadn't been there to receive Odin's mission. That was the only reason why he wasn't there. Under the Colosseum, they all go there. Hades splits the group into two smaller groups. Xehanort, Bragi, and Ericus request to talk to the damned soul of Hoda, Balder's sister, and Hades agrees as long as one of them stays in the underworld to aid him later on. They agree to the terms, and Hades sends them to Hodor. The group are confronted by Cerberus. Balder finds them and suggests that he and Bragi stay and fight Cerberus while Ericus and Xehanort go on. They do, and then they run into the other group and they go to help Balder and Bragi fight Cerberus. Ericus and Xehanort find Hodor's spirit as well as those of Sigrun, Heimdall, and Helgi, meaning that all of those upperclassmen have been slain. The fallen classmates describe how they met their demise. Whilst in the Enchanted Dominion, they refused to help Aurora because they thought not helping her would protect the natural order. Hoda ran off to face Maleficent solo, got her ass handed to her, and as she was about to die, the others found her, also waged war against Maleficent, and she wiped the floor with everyone. So they advise the others that darkness and light are but conflicting opinions on the same matter, and that darkness and light is just a matter of perspective. And they posit that a treaty would be easier to achieve than wiping darkness out altogether. Xehanort and Ericus disagree. They're like, "F you dead guys, what do you know, you're dead." And they go to leave. But Hoda asks a favour of Xehanort. They arrive back where the group were fighting Cerberus to find Erd standing there alone. Hermod had gone off in search of Balder and Bragi. Hades reappears and reminds them that one of them has to stay behind because that was a deal. And Erd's like, do you know what, flamehead dude? No. And so he starts a fight with Hades. Blows out the flame on his head, headbutts him, pulls out a keyblade on him, shakes him down for loose change, steals his grandma's pearls, and then Hermod jumps in to help. As Hades, Hermod, and Erd do battle, a portal opens up and sucks all the classmen into a dark corridor, and they're unprotected at this point. And Hades looks off and sees a familiar figure in the distance. The classmen put their keyblade armor on and try and look for an exit, and Xehanort manages to find Ericus. Hermod is overwhelmed by the darkness, but Erd sees the shadowy figure and is like, "Oh, it's you, friend." But then the figure turns on Erd, kills Erd and Hemrod. The figure then wants to turn on Xehanort and Ericus, but Odin appears and rescues Xehanort and Ericus. Back home, Odin confirms that they are the only two to return to Skala ad Kalem. And as they're having this conversation, suddenly Skala comes under attack. He rushes off to save the other students and evacuate them. Xehanort tells Ericus that the person who's now attacking Skala and the figure from the corridor have to be the same person. He then says that it has to be Balder, taken over from the darkness at the loss of his sister. They leave and discover that the city is being completely over. Bali, Vala, and Vidar arrive through a portal, and Ericus accuses them of not protecting Hoda. So they've just come in to be like, "We're going to help you," and Ericus is like, "Dickhead, why didn't you protect your classmate? A bunch of yous is already dead because you didn't stay and protect one of them." Balder arrives, shrouded in darkness, and confirms Xehanort's theory. He teases the group at their failure to secure the Seven Lights, to which Ericus vows that he will save Balder from the darkness, rather than just straight out execute you. I'm gonna exorcise the demon. And Balder's like, yeah, whatever, because he needs to go and chase Vor. He finds her and reveals to her the agonizing pain that led him to become possessed, and that the darkness is now using him to kill off both sets of classmen and prevent the finding of the Seven Lights. Vor does battle with him, getting overwhelmed, but then gets saved by Vali, Vala, and Vidar. There's a lot of V's going on here. Xehanort and Ericus arrive during the battle in time to see Balder summon a large Heartless that TPKs everyone. It wipes out the entire V party in one hit. But somehow Ericus and Xehanort are able to defend themselves against this guy. Vor tries to get a strike on Balder while this is happening, while he's distracted. And she fails because Balder hits her with her dark powers. And then he disappears off to the roof. Because apparently, and this is actually what he says, because I made sure I quoted it, it's apparently a more appropriate place for an epic battle. So the other two, Ericus and Xehanort, go and join him.
Rue failed to clarify this, but it's the darkness inside Balder that's forcing him to do these things, and this next part is the darkness's plan.
Here, Balder reveals his ultimate goal.
It's to blow up and then act like I don't know nobody.
It's to sacrifice 13 lights to the darknesses and summon Kingdom Hearts to purge the worlds and bring about an endless dark age. He had begun with his own sister to try and incentivize Vidar to seek revenge, and killed the rest to add to the pressure. Vidar, unable to kill his friend Balder, would then have to gather the rest of the remaining lights. Vidar eventually disregards this mission, so he had started doing it, Balder's plan was working out. Vidar is eventually like, no, do you know what, f*** this? So Balder's like, oh, I'm gonna have to do something. So he attacks the lower classmen instead. Balder then transforms into a massive Heartless and battles Xehanort and Ericus. Ericus manages to take down Balder, and he tells Xehanort, while he's got him pinned, to purge the darkness from Balder's heart, but instead Xehanort tries to kill him. Ericus objects, and Balder uses this opportunity to engulf the entire area in darkness. And then he speaks to Xehanort. The darkness inside Balder informs Xehanort that it was neither an ancient darkness or Balder's own darkness, but it was born from the darkness around Balder his whole life, through the people he had met, then the death of his sister further. Hoda bursts forth from Xehanort's heart, because remember, she asked him a favour in the underworld, it was to see her brother again. Balder breaks down when he sees his sister. He explains that he had had the same gift Xehanort had had of feeling people's hearts his entire life, and it had gradually just worn him away, and he had given into the darkness of the people around him. Hoda and Ericus were the only pure lights he had ever met in his entire life, and that everybody else just already had darkness in them. But Hoda had always made him feel safe and had kept his faith against the darkness by providing pure light. When her light vanished with her, it scared him so much that he just let the darkness consume him. Thinking that there were only two types of people, those of light and everyone else dark, he'd abandoned all hope. And then Hoda and Balder reach out to embrace. Balder's darkness strikes out, only to be stopped by Odin. Odin demands that Xehanort purge Balder's heart of darkness, but Balder fights back, banishing Hoda in the process. He then turns to talk to Xehanort, reasoning with the darkness in Xehanort, saying pure lights will only ever see them as darknesses, and that they will eventually turn on them to eradicate the darkness in them. He implores that Xehanort search for the truth about the darkness that they seem to share. Xehanort goes to purge him, but kills him instead. And Odin's like, dude, what the f***? He's really sad that he's lost another student. Months later, Xehanort and Ericus lay flowers at the graves of the 11 fallen classmates. Xehanort asks about Odin. Ericus tells him that he is now sad and broken, but he wants the two of them to take over his place and become the masters of Scala. So they have to take the Mark of Mastery exams. The two leave to play chess when Luciu from Union X suddenly appears in the graveyard and ponders Bragi's grave. He recalls the underworld and an interaction between Bragi and Balder. Balder had threatened Bragi, who retorts with the point that killing him would confirm Xehanort's suspicions about him being the bad guy. He then mentions how possessing Balder would compromise himself, as in, he's just pondering this aloud. He'd be like, oh, if I take over Balder, that would look weird, wouldn't it? Balder's like, what are you talking about? What the hell? Try and possess me. So he strikes him. He leaves directly after, so he doesn't check the body. Bragi had survived. In the present day, thinking back on this memory, Luciu removes his hood and is actually Bragi underneath. Despite the fact the last time we saw Luciu pull his hood back, he was Brain. So he had been Bragi all along. He stares down at the grave and laments about how his Scala identity was now cooked, hinting that he needed a new one. After this scene, just a year later, Xehanort is taking his Mark of Mastery exam, and he's walking through a corridor of darkness. He notes that the armor he's wearing doesn't seem to protect him fully, as he can feel the darkness burgeoning in his own heart. He removes his armor to test this theory and immediately passes out like a weak little bitch. However, he is found by the ever-elusive Master of Masters, who refers to Xehanort as the Singularity. In the Keyblade graveyard, the Master of Masters reveals to Xehanort that he is a former Keyblade wielder, and imparts the wisdom to him to look inside people's hearts to see the difference of how difficult emotions and lots of power can create either light or darkness. He also gives Xehanort a black coat, revealing its better protection against the darkness. Sometime later, Xehanort returns to the graveyard and shares what he has discovered with the Master. Basically, he's been running around worlds looking into people's hearts and finding that most of them already have darkness in them anyway. A pure light is very, very rare. He's like, I've lost faith in people's abilities to stave darkness from their lives. I'm gonna take over the entire universe, take control of darkness itself, and remake it in my image. This is where the idea of him summoning Kingdom Hearts starts to form. And he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to wait till the Michael Mastery exam is over. And the Master's like, well, you've already made up your mind, dude. The outcome doesn't matter. Also, you seem to be getting on well with this black coat. Soon you're not going to need it. Soon you're going to be able to control the darkness and walk through dark corridors without any protection. And Xehanort is like, how the hell do you know all this? So the Master reveals that he's one of the lost Keyblade Masters. 2 years after this, Ericus and Xehanort reunite in their old classroom and tell each other the things that they've learned. Xehanort claims it's way too much for one life and that he must have 14 instead. 13 to create the new universe he wishes for, and then 1 to explore it afterwards. Ericus reveals that he just wants to remain on the path of light and become a beacon to all who ever find themselves lost. 4 years after he meets with the Master, him and Ericus meet again, but at the foot of 4 graves that Xehanort lays fresh flowers on. He tells Ericus that he's going to discover the things Odin never taught them. Ericus pushes back, but knows Xehanort will be back soon because they've still got to finish their game of chess. 7 years after meeting the Master, Ericus and Xehanort are finally crowned Masters, and Ericus, as the heir to Scala, is given the Defender Keyblade that we see Aqua take from him in Birth by Sleep. Xehanort is given the fabled no-name Keyblade that has been resting in the mantle at Scala ad Caelum. The two have a really heated debate over the summoning of Kingdom Hearts, with Xehanort set on it becoming his life's goal. 54 years after meeting the Master, Ericus and Xehanort stand in the land of departure, where they have the heated conflict that we've seen that ends up scarring Ericus's face and giving him that jagged look. The debate had been over Xehanort trying to summon the Keyblade. 64 years after meeting the Master, Xehanort returns to the Dwarf Woodlands, where he asks the Magic Mirror if the friends he still dreams about from his old mentor's life were ever real. And the mirror reveals that some of them are still alive, namely Ventus, and shows him a picture of Ventus in the Keyblade graveyard. The next shot is he and Ventus walking through a corridor of darkness, where Xehanort speaks aloud about the advice given to him from the Master of Masters about wearing the black coat. He speaks how a living person would try to connect and empathize with the dark emotions felt in the corridor, then reflects that a strong enough heart would be able to take that and not use the coat. He thinks back to his mentor's title given to him of the Child of Destiny, and that in order to really deserve it, he must embrace the emotions in the dark corridor. Later, he is seen in the Land of Departure dropping off Ventus like we saw in Birth by Sleep, revealing to Ericus that Ventus had been his student for the past year. He and Ericus make amends, because apparently Xehanort had sent a letter to him a while ago apologizing. He then tells Ericus that he believes Ventus to be the Child of Destiny, and he wants Ericus to train him as a Child of Light. Ventus screaming in the background breaks their conversation and they go off to investigate. Later, Xehanort is seen talking to Vanitas, who tells him he is glad Ventus is gone. Xehanort tells him that it was actually for Ventus' sake, as he reveals that of the 13 darknesses, 7 are trapped with the Lost Masters, 4 are trapped in the realm between, leaving the other 2 to be destroyed with the original world when Daybreak Town fell apart. However, it is not actually true, as one of the original darknesses actually escaped, disguised as Ventus. Having created Vanitas by splitting Ventus' light from his darkness as we saw in Birth by Sleep, Xehanort then accuses Vanitas of being one of the original pure darknesses, and interrogates him as to the real locations of the others. Vanitas denies this claim, to which Xehanort reveals that he knows Vanitas was not born from Ventus' heart, merely hiding inside it. So he has to be the one that had been possessing Ventus to kill Streligel. So Vanitas drops his axe, confirming Xehanort's suspicions, and asks how much he knows, to which Xehanort replies, How much do you know? Trying to ascertain where the other ancient darknesses be. And the Vanitas darkness is like, nah man, I ain't gonna tell you. I don't know if I can trust you yet. Game fades out and the credits roll. So that's Dark Road.
Thank you everybody so much for joining me as we explore the intriguing stories of the Kingdom Hearts franchise together. I have been your friendly neighborhood Pooderoo, and I hope you've had as much of a blast with this series as I did with making it. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye bye.